Okay, YouTube, in this video we're going to be looking at a little bit different approach to parabolas. In the past 3 videos here, we've been given the equation and rewritten it into standard form and went and graphed our parabola here. As a matter of fact, it seems that we forgot to graph our parabola in this last example here. There we go. But we went and graphed it using the equation. What we're going to do in this video is we want to look at some of the characteristics of a parabola that satisfy these given characteristics, and we want to write the equation of that parabola. So in terms of write the equation, we always mean to write the equation in standard form. And so the fabulous thing with standard form is that really then there are only 3 values that we're going to want to find here. And so for a vertically oriented parabola, we can see on the left here that our standard form is x minus h squared equals 4p times y minus k. Essentially, all we're going to want to know are what are the values of h, p, and k. And so this would be for vertically oriented. For horizontally oriented things, we just want to be able to determine the values of the same 3 things, except for it'll be y minus k squared equals 4 times p times x minus h. And so we're basically just in a search for these values right here, and you'll be surprised how easy it is for us to find these just by describing the characteristics that we're given here. And so in terms of what we have, let's go ahead and take a look at this example. It says find the standard equation of the parabola with the vertex at the origin and a focus at 2, 0. So with respect to what we know, well, we know the vertex is at 0, 0. So the first thing we'll put on here is our vertex, and we'll label this B. We know that the focus is at 2, 0, so we're going to say that this is our focus here at 2, 0. So we say 0, 0, and at 2, 0. But already here are some things that we know. First things first, because the focus lies to the right of our parabola, and it has to be on that axis of symmetry, we know that this is a horizontally oriented parabola. It has to open towards the focus here. And so in terms of which of these forms we're going to use, we're certainly going to use this form right here to write its equation. So in terms of its equation, let's go ahead and get set here. We have y minus k squared equals 4 times p times x minus h. So we're going to drop in our values here, and because we know the vertex values, we already know the values of h and k. Recall that h and k tell us the vertex values. So we're going to go ahead and fill in with zeros here, 0 and 0. Now the only thing we haven't determined yet is just p. Now p, remember, p is this directed distance from the vertex to the focus. So in this particular case, I can see that I went 2 units to the right. That's going to be the value of p right here. And so importantly, we're going to drop in p on its own because we're going to have to take this 4 times that 2 in order to get this. Now, one thing that I actually do want to make sure is finish this picture here. Because our focus is 2 to the right, our directrix is 2 to the left. And I just want to make sure that we are actually finishing our graph. So we say that this parabola would open towards the focus here and away from the directrix. But its equation, when we look at this, something like this that has its vertex at 0, 0, we're going to see instantly that we really just end up with just something like a y squared. And over here on the right side, we end up with 4 times 2, which is 8. And 8 times x minus 0, this is really 8x. And so this is the standard form equation of our parabola. And all we had to do was come up with the values of h, k, and p. And so that's something that I am interested in doing a couple more times here, but with describing different characteristics and seeing what we can piece together. So in this next one that we're looking at, it says find the standard equation, standard form of the equation of the parabola with a vertex at 2, 3 and a focus at 2, 1. So one thing we want to mention here first of all is that given the vertex here, we already know h and k, but let's go ahead and graph this. We say over 2 and up 3. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we label this here. This is our vertex. And then our focus is at 2, 1. If we go 2 to the right and 1 up, we would say that this is our focus right here. So already some things we could say that I know that the axis of symmetry runs through this vertically, okay? And I know that my parabola opens downward right here. We also know h and k, and we could also piece together the p value here. It looks like our p value must be going down by 2. So because we go down by 2 from the vertex to get to the focus, we would go up by 2 to get to the directrix. Not that it matters here that we need this. We're writing the equation here, but we do want to write all the things that we know about this here. And so if this were initially at a height of 3 on our vertex and we go up 2, this would be at a height of 5. So here is our parabola right here that we want to write the equation of. Really, since this is a vertically oriented parabola, okay, we're going to have a squared x term. So we have x minus h squared equals 4 times p times y minus k. So looking at this, we'll just go ahead and drop in the values of h and k respectively, x minus h, y minus k, and then our p-value here, it looks like just by observation is -2. And so simplifying this one actually stays the way it is. We would say that it's x minus 2 squared equals 4 times a -2 is a -8, and we say that this is y minus 3. And so we could pretty easily see that this is a parabola that starts at 2, 3, and goes downward 2 from there to get to its focus. So for this last one that we're taking a look at here, it says find the standard equation of the parabola with a vertex at -2, 1, and a directrix of x equals 1. So again, let's go ahead and write in what we know here, or at least draw in what we know. We know already h and k, by the way. But if we go left 2 and up 1, we would say here is our vertex. Let's go ahead and label this here. We would say vertex, and the directrix is at x equals 1. So because our directrix is at x equals 1, that is a vertical line going through the x value of 1. Okay? We say since this is our directrix, and that is, let's just see here. I'll actually go back to my pen tool here. Since that is 3 units to the right of our vertex, if we go 3 units to the left of our vertex, we should arrive at what we call the focus here. And so because this is the point, -2, 1, if we were to go 3 to the left of this, this would be -5, 1 here. But we could see that this p-value here, the p-value going left 3, would be -3. So the 3 things we needed to find were h, k, and p. We have h, we have k, we have p. Let's go write this equation. So we would notice that because this graph here opens towards its focus, okay, would be horizontally oriented, we're going to start with something that has a squared y term. So we have y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. And so filling in our values here, we have y minus k, our k value at our vertex is a +1 squared, equals 4 times p, now our p value is -3, and then our x minus h, the interesting thing about h is actually negative. So we end up with this quantity right here, where as we simplify this, we end up with y minus 1 squared equals -12 x plus 2. And so this would be something that has a vertex at -2, 1, okay, and opens to the left because of our negative p value here. So for this last example, let's see how much we can get from scratch here. It says find the standard equation, the standard form of the equation of the parabola, with a vertex at 3, -3, and passes through the point 0, 0. Now this is a little bit interesting here. Let's go ahead and, again, what I want to start with is just draw a picture and acknowledge what we know here. If we're writing the equation, we know that 3, -3 here, that's our h and our k value here. So if we're going to go right 3 and down 3, okay, this is the point that we are calling the vertex of our parabola right here. We say, and it passes through the point 0, 0. So the interesting thing about this parabola is that this is its vertex, and this is just some point, x, y, that's on the outside of this parabola. So what that's going to mean for us is this here. You could imagine that since it goes through that point, we have some upward oriented parabola, and we could see that its axis of symmetry then must also share some commonalities with our vertex. So we'd say that it'd be a vertical line, x equals -3 here, okay? But what we want to do is we want to come up with this equation. Now, vertically oriented parabolas, recall that we have a squared x term here, 4p y minus k. And what we're interested in doing is writing this equation right here. The only problem is we do not know where the focus is. We don't know where the focus is. So, in other words, what do we know? We know h, we know k. We know some x and some y here. The only thing we don't know is p. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to recognize that h and k here are respectively 3 and -3. And we're going to say that our point x, y, this could be any point on the graph, but is given as 0, 0. So what our method is going to be is this. We are just going to substitute in everything we know values for, and we're going to solve for the one thing for which we don't know a value, which would be our p value. So we would say that h, we have x is 0, h is 3. We have our y value is 0 at this point, and our k value here is +3 here. So we would say, let's see, k is, oops, it's +3, -3. Sorry, +3, -3, I labeled it wrong. We say a -3 here. So what we end up with is essentially we get -3 squared equals 4 times p, where this would be 0 plus a +3, we get a 3. So in other words, we have 9 equals 4 times p times 3, which would be 12p, and it would be very true then that our p value would be 9/12, which is the same thing as 3/4. fourths. And so what this would mean is that we would go upward 3/4 of a unit to get to the focus here, but that also our directrix would be back 3/4 of the unit here. But the bottom line is what we wanted to do was write the equation. So now that we know the value of P, and we know the values of H and K respectively, we can write this equation. We could say that we have X minus H, which is 3 squared, equals 4 times P, which our P value is 3/4, times y minus k, where our k value here, our k value is a -3. So we'll say -3 here, which will make this plus a positive. And also we see that these 4's here would cancel out. And so what we get left with is our final equation here, x minus 3 squared is equal to 3 times y plus 3 would be our parabola right here. Cheers.